So my farm is not a charity. I started it with the goal of it being a business. I started it with the goal of it being a side hustle. By the time I started my commercial layer farm, I was a full practicing human medical doctor. And the farm was simply a side hustle that I actually wanted to get me extra income. Now, of course, things changed a little bit in that I actually managed to quit my medical job and concentrated on farming as the main gig, or at least one of my gigs. So things have changed completely, but in today's video, I'm going to be sharing the figures with you guys. Does it actually make financial sense? Is it an actual viable business idea? Is it something that I can actually do for money? Does it even make sense? Do I keep talking about things that don't make sense to you guys, or does it actually make sense? So this is the video, guys. So first, I want you to note that I'm only going to be talking about my commercial layer farm. I'm not going to be talking about the breeder farm. I'm not going to be talking about the other businesses that are kind of affiliated to the farm. For example, this YouTube channel, yeah? I'm only going to be talking about the farm, the commercial layer farm. Why not the breeder farm? Because running breeder farms is actually very complicated, quite expensive. It requires a lot of expertise and a lot of money. So it's not viable. But this, a commercial layer farm, is actually something that a lot of you people actually watching the channel are aspiring towards, and yeah, you can certainly start it. So first, there are quite a number of things on this farm that can actually bring in money. Yeah, we have the chickens, so the eggs that they do produce, that is like the core business for the farm. But in addition to that, when the chickens are done laying, when it reaches a point where the eggs that they're producing are not enough for the farm to be profitable, the chickens are sold for meat, which is a one-time sale. So that's also another potential business perspective. Number three, there's the manure, which comes from the chickens. You know, we keep our chickens on deep litter system, so the manure, which is a composition of the wood shavings and the droppings of the chickens themselves, actually produce very, very good manure that can be sold and placed in gardens. Number four, I have a banana plantation on the farm on maybe an acre. It's maybe on about an acre or a little bit less than an acre. And from there, I can produce bananas that I can actually sell. And then number five, there's the other small crops that are grown around the farm, you know, the maize, the groundnuts, and things like that. But I only consider two of them as the main core things that actually count towards the business. And that's the eggs and the off layers, you know, the chickens, once we are culling them. Because the rest of the things, number one, the manure itself, I don't sell the manure, guys. I use it on the farm myself. I just place it inside the garden, the matoke plantations and the rest of the garden, to make sure that we have a better yield. It doesn't make sense for me to sell them and then buy fertilizer, yeah? So I use it. Secondly, the bananas themselves, I don't sell bananas, guys, yeah? The bananas I use for personal consumption while I'm on the farm. My family and friends, you know, since I'm very close to where I was born, everyone who comes around can get bananas, you know, my family, my relatives, people around, you know, if I'm very happy with someone, they have done good work, I can give them a bunch of bananas. So that's also not core business. The other ones are the other crops, like the groundnuts that we grow, the maize that we grow. Even that, I don't consider it core business, because the maize, for example, once I mill it, I can use it to process feed for the chickens or maybe feed for the guys. Same thing with the groundnuts. Everything else we grow around is mainly for consumption on the farm and not for sale. Now, first we're going to start with how much money we did make from the egg sales. So this year, 2023, we've had mainly 2 flocks on the farm. And these 2 flocks, one of them started the year when it was already laying. It should have been at least 50 weeks old. You know, it was quite old. It was already at least a year old by the time the year ended. And we kept it until early September, yeah, and we sold it off. Then the second flock started laying around end of April, and then it's still laying up to now. So ideally, despite the fact that we've had 5,000 birds laying on the farm at one point, the point where we actually did have an overlap, where we had all the 5,000, was only 4 months. Yeah, that was May, June, July, and August. So for the first 4 months and the last 4 months of the year, we've ideally only had 2,500 chickens laying eggs on the farm. So the numbers haven't been very huge. We are expanding right now, but the numbers haven't been very huge. That's the first thing to note. Also, the other thing that we do is that we sell our eggs as wholesale, wholesale price, because I produce way too many eggs to sell them at retail. So I have an outlet not so far away from here where the eggs are delivered almost every day to be sold. So I sell them at a wholesale price, which is probably a little bit lower than what you would buy personally at a retail price. The other thing is that I'm going to be giving you guys the figures in US dollars, because that's probably the most standardized currency we have. I won't share it in Ugandan shillings because a very small percentage of Ugandans actually watch these videos. So this last year, 2023, I made egg sales of $83,248 US dollars. That's how much I sold in terms of eggs. I don't know if that's a lot or if that's small, but what you need to remember is that, first of all, only a small overlap of that had 2 flocks. The rest, 2/3 of the year only had 1 flock. Secondly, you need to remember that I got into the year when my first flock is actually coming down. Yeah, and then the second flock at some point gave us a little bit of issues in terms of egg production. So we didn't get the best that we could, but yeah, I think this is decent enough. $83,248 in terms of sales. Then the other thing that I sold was the off layers. So in the actually early September, I managed to sell the flock of layers that I had, and I sold it for $8,277 US dollars. I think that's decent enough too, yeah, considering it's like, your goodbye at the end of everything. That's actually the money I used to buy the scooter that I do have on the farm. So what that means is that the total annual sales for 2023 was $91,525 US dollars. Yeah, so the small number, it's a good number. Oh well, let's go to the reality check. The expenses. So the biggest expense by far on the farm is feed. Feed is really, really expensive. And this year, feed has been a little bit higher than usual. Well, not as bad as it was last year and towards the end of last year, but it was still quite high. Now, at the beginning of the year, until around August, September, I didn't have a feed store. So what that meant is that I bought the feed as the prices changed. And so at some point the feed prices were really, really high. Guys, I spent a lot of money buying feed. I once bought maize at 1,400, 1,500. That's maybe 45, 46 cents a kilogram of maize for something that at one point was maybe 17, 18 cents, maybe 20 cents. So it became really, really expensive, yeah? It could have been way cheaper. Now that's something that I learned. Luckily enough, right now, the price of feeds is not as high as it could have been. But the feed cost for 2023 was $56,603 US dollars. Guys, that's a very huge number. It's honestly a huge number. Now, this feed cost involves both the flocks. It involves the flock which I had until culling, until the point that I sold it off. But also, it involves the younger flock right from the beginning of the year. That was just after I brought it. So ideally, you have about 4 months where I'm raising the flock and I'm not earning a shilling. That is also incorporated into this cost. So it's not only the cost for when the birds are laying, it also involves the developing point of the birds. But yeah, you're thinking, is that ideal? Is that what always happens? Of course not. Yeah, I'll give you an example. At the beginning of the year, I was paying 1,500. This is in Ugandan shillings, in price of maize per kilogram. Right now, I'm paying 850 shillings. You understand? It's almost half what I was paying. And going forward, I'm certainly not going to be paying those exorbitant prices, because now I have a feed store. I have somewhere where I can actually buy and store maize in huge amounts. So I'm not going to face the problem of paying very, very high prices of feed in the future, and that means that I'm going to save way more money. Now, there's also the other expenses, and the other expenses are honestly not big expenses. It's usually labor, and then medicines, vaccines, vitamins, dewormers, small things. The medicines are really a small part of the bill for you, yeah? So maybe the other part that mainly makes up the expenses is the salaries and the food for the guys on the farm. And the other expenses on the farm for the year was $6,086 US dollars. Now that's not too much. You're thinking, whoa, how can labor be that cheap? Well, it's Uganda. Labor is not as expensive. In most parts of Africa, labor is not going to be expensive, but even with such a figure that you might consider low, my guys are decently paid compared to a lot of farmers outside there. I pay my guys quite well, yeah? So that is the other cost. And so our total expenses on the farm for 2023 was $62,689 US dollars, yeah? Yeah! We already came from 90-something thousand in terms of, you know, gross sales, and we're already at 62,000 in terms of expenses. Of course, it was on the higher side because of the feed. Yeah, I know the feed can get way cheaper if you deal with it very well. That's why it's very important that you learn how to deal with the feed expenses. But well, that's what it was. And so our profit on the farm for the year 2023 was 28,836 US dollars. Yeah. So you're now thinking, 28,836 US dollars. Is that worth it? Guys, don't forget that for most of the year, I've had only one flock laying, 2,500 birds. My farm, I'm building it to be able to carry 10,000 birds on the farm. But again, this is not bad, honestly, 28,000 US dollars a year, considering I only spend maximum 5 days on the farm a month, maximum, guys. There's months where I spend 2 or 3 days on the farm. So I feel like it's worth it. If we average out just 5 days on the farm for a whole year, that means I work on the farm for only 2 months. That means I work on the farm for only 2 months the entire year. So 28,800 for 2 months worth of work. I think that's good, yeah? So it's worth it for me, but also I'm going to be expanding the farm. So this is only the beginning. Right now I have a flock that's about to start laying. So I'm going to have 5,000 birds laying, and then later on I'm going to bring another flock. At some point I want to have 10,000 birds laying. So you can imagine how much I could be making. So it's certainly worth it. So you're probably considering it, you're thinking, is it worth it for me? 100% worth it for me, because it doesn't take too much of my time. I've been able to develop an awesome team that works for me on the farm. I have a lovely manager. I have awesome workers on the farm that actually are able to chase themselves and fulfill all the tasks without me having to be present. So I feel like it's worth the effort, guys. It's worth the effort for me. So yeah, guys, tell me what you think in the comment section below. Is it worth the fuse? Is it worth it at all? It's certainly worth it. Yeah, for me, I feel like it's worth it. This is not money I would have earned while I was working as a doctor. While I was working as a doctor, I was earning 1,000 US dollars a month. So in 12 months, that would be 12,000. Even if I doubled it, that would be 24,000. That's still less than I actually earned on the farm, and the farm is still expanding. So I'm hoping that next year we're actually going to be able to do better things. But the interesting bit is that I've actually not gotten to save any of this money, because I've used it to invest it on the farm. We've placed a fence around the farm. I constructed another chicken barn. I constructed the feed store on the farm. So I've actually not picked anything out of the farm. I've put all the money into the farm to enable me expand. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. That way you never miss out on an upload. Catch you very soon with another video. Bye-bye.